All Bible end-time prophecy hinges on these 70 weeks of Daniel. If you correctly understand God's message through the angel Gabriel to Daniel about these 70 weeks, then you will have unlocked the mystery of end-time prophecy. You will be able to predict future prophetic events, and you will understand God's biblical timing. Hello. This is Northwind, prophet of the Most High God. We see that the 70 weeks are located in Daniel chapter 9. Daniel was praying to God when Gabriel showed up.
Yea, whiles I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation, and said, O Daniel, I am now come forth to give thee skill and understanding. Therefore understand the matter, and consider the vision. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
So Gabriel is instructed to understand the matter and consider the vision. Gabriel had given Daniel 2 visions, one in chapter 7 and one in chapter 8. Gabriel had already told Daniel that the vision was about the time of the end.
And it came to pass, when I, even I, Daniel, had seen the vision, and sought for the meaning, then, behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid, and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground. But he touched me, and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation. For at the time appointed the end shall be.
The vision Daniel had in chapter 7 was an evening vision. The vision that Daniel had in chapter 8 was a morning vision.
And the vision of the evening and the morning which was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days.
Notice that Gabriel refers to both these visions as a singular it. These 2 visions were of one message about the time of the end. Daniel was also told the length of this end-time vision.
Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed.
So from the beginning of the tribulation to the end, it will be 2,300 days. So from the visions of Daniel in chapter 7 and 8 all the way through the end of the book of Daniel, it all is dealing with the very end of time and these final 2,300 days. This will bring to end the rule of man on earth and the beginning of Jesus' 1,000-year millennial reign. We have discovered the tribulation length to be 2,300 days. Now let's take a closer look at Daniel's 2 dreams.
Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man. And a man's heart was given
At
to
the
it.
end of World War II, NATO was formed, and their emblem was a lion with eagle's wings. The lion is England, and the eagle's wings are America.
And behold another beast, a second, like to a bear, And it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh.
Daniel chapter 7 predicts World War III with the Western NATO powers going against the Eastern Russian and Muslim bloc.
After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes, like the eyes of man, and a mouth, speaking great
So
things.
we see Daniel's first night vision of chapter 7 carries us from World War III all the way through the Antichrist reign. We will find that Daniel's second vision of chapter 8 does the exact same thing.
In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beasts might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and became great. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media
Gabriel
and Persia.
tells Daniel that this ram represents Media and Persia, or what is common day Iraq and Iran. These 2 horns represent 2 wars, the last being the largest, and that will be with Iran. The first was with Iraq.
And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand.
So here in chapter 8, Daniel sees the same scenario played out. The Western free world goes against the Eastern communist and Muslim nations in World War III. And notice that the he-goat touched not the ground. It's an air assault. This war enables the world to unify under one authority, the New World Order, or the One World government system. Let us now use the book of Revelation to break down those 2300 days. The book in the Father's right hand in the book of Revelation, with 7 seals on it, reveals to us the breakdown of these 2300 days. The 7 seals mention no specific amounts of time. As they are removed, they reveal to us a preview of what is contained within the sealed book. With the book opened, the first 4 trumps give us no amount of time. We can conclude that these 4 trumps happen quickly and together. These 4 trumps depict a nuclear war where 1/3 of the ships are sunk, 1/3 of the trees are burnt, 1/3 of the fish are killed, and 1/3 of the day is unable to show because of the burnings of war. Trump 5, we find our first allotment of time, 5 months or 154 days. Trump 6 gives us amount of time of 1 day, 1 month, and 1 year, or 396 days. We are also made aware in chapter 13 that the Antichrist is allotted 42 months, or 1,260 days. The remaining 490 days we find within these 70 weeks. 70 weeks equals 490 days. This brings us to the focus of our study, these 70 weeks. All end-time prophecy hinges on these 70 weeks of Daniel.
Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
Now I want you to notice the finality of the purpose of these 70 weeks, to finish the transgression, to make an end of Israel's sins, to make reconciliation for their iniquity. All of this was a process set forth by God to reincorporate Israel back into a state of fellowship with their Creator. Earlier in this chapter, Daniel had discovered through Jeremiah's prophecy that the relationship that Israel had with their Creator had changed.
In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by books the number of the years whereof the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem.
Daniel had discovered through Jeremiah's writings that Israel was in exile for 70 years. Daniel also discovered that the covenant that Israel had with their Creator had changed. Jeremiah documents the purpose for this change in the covenant.
And many nations shall pass by this city, and they shall say every man to his neighbor, Wherefore hath the Lord done thus unto this great city? Then they shall answer, Because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord their God, and worshipped other gods, and served them. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband unto them, saith the Lord. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts, and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people.
You will recall in the Old Covenant there was a mercy seat on the Ark of the Covenant where sins could be forgiven.
Chapter 9. Then verily the first covenant had also ordinances of divine service and a worldly sanctuary. For there was a tabernacle made. The first, wherein was the candlestick and the table and the showbread, which is called the sanctuary. And after the second veil the tabernacle, which is called the holiest of all, which had the golden censer, and the ark of the covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant. And over it the cherubims of glory shadowing the mercy seat, of which we cannot now speak particularly.
With the end of the Old Covenant, God had taken away the Ark of the Covenant so that Israel could no longer approach God for the forgiveness of sin. So this brings us back to these 70 weeks and their purpose. God will incorporate Israel back into the fold at the very end of time.
Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy.
So verse 24 is an overview of these 70 weeks. The focus is on the nation Israel and the city of Jerusalem. It is to finish their transgression or sin, make an end of their sin, to reconcile them back to God, and to create an everlasting relationship instead of a year-to-year relationship from the Old Testament law. And then finally, for them to anoint their true Messiah, Jesus.
Know therefore and understand, that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off.
Here we are breaking down the 70 weeks into segments. It's stating that it takes 7 weeks from the time that the commandment is made until the construction is started on the temple. It is understood that the streets and the walls will begin construction right away. The full building process takes 62 weeks.
And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined.
So we have a verification of how much of the 70 weeks have passed, because it says after 62 weeks. The translator built deception into the translation here with this Messiah cut off. The prime root of the word being translated meant to cut off, as in a sacrifice. But the actual word needed to be translated covenant. For this is the Prince of the Covenant showing up after the temple's been rebuilt to assume his position for a 42-month reign. And so we find that after 62 weeks of building the temple and Jerusalem, the false Messiah, the Antichrist, shows up to begin his 42-month reign. Simultaneous to his reign are 2 witnesses sent by God that he will put to death at the end of their 42-month testimony. We are told by the word of God that Lucifer was not able to keep these 2 witnesses dead. Israel loses faith in their false Messiah, causing him to start confirming the covenant. But in the middle of that week, he turns on the Jews to kill them, and he moves that statue that was brought back to life into the sanctuary, committing the abomination of desolation.
And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate.
You will recall that we stated that everything from chapter 7 through 12 are dealing with these 2300 days. In Daniel chapter 10, Gabriel returns to add more clarification on this end time.
Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days.
In chapter 11, Gabriel adds great detail. He identifies 2 kings that will exist throughout the 2300 days, and they war against each other. And then finally, at the end, they will turn on the Antichrist and he will overcome them. There is a position created to oversee this one world governance system. It is first controlled by the prince of the king of the south, and then after he dies, a raiser of taxes assumes that estate or position. He only lasts a few days, And then the Antichrist, the vile one, the prince of the covenant, assumes that role.
And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together.
This next excerpt from chapter 11 shows the death of the first administrator, the second administrator taking his place, and then following the Antichrist taking his place.
Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall, and not be found. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. But within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom. But he shall come in peaceably, and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant.
So the Antichrist has 42 months to reign, but these kings of the north and south continue to fight against each other. At the end of the Antichrist reign, these two kings turn on the Antichrist.
And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon.
At this time appointed, the Antichrist turns on the Jews because they lost faith in him. He commits the abomination of desolation. The king of the north and the king of the south turn on him. Israel is warned to flee to the mountains of Jordan. And you notice that Daniel allots for that protected area, stating that the Antichrist does not gain control of Moab and the place of Ammon. Now remember that we only used 62 of those 70 weeks. And so we find the balance of those 70 weeks in Daniel chapter 12. But before we do that, let's take a look at Daniel's accounting of the rapture in chapter 12.
Chapter 12. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
So we find the accounting of the rapture at the very end of Daniel's accounting of these 2,300 days. And this is the exact same thing that the book of Revelation teaches, that just after chapter 13, where we find the Antichrist in Revelation, we find Jesus coming in the clouds in chapter 14.
Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Yea, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. And I looked, and behold a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle.
So here we find the same thing. After the Antichrist has had his 42 months, the rapture happened. This won't fill any offering plates, but it's the truth. Back to chapter 12 of Daniel. Daniel was asking for more information. Daniel was told about the Antichrist and 1290 days, and then we find the accounting of the balance of those 70 weeks. So it appears that the 70 weeks are split up God starts dealing with Israel, and then the Antichrist takes over for his 42-month reign as the temple was completed. Then, at the end of the Antichrist's reign, he turns on the Jews, and the final part of those 70 weeks are fulfilled. This has been Northwind of the Most High God, and this is the message the Creator has given me to give to His church.